Good afternoon on a Wednesday, February 1st. This is my third team preview of the day and my sixth team preview overall as we go through the exit reports for the 2022 NFL season. And I have to tell you, quite honestly, I've actually been looking forward to doing this one, the New York Jets, for today. And the reason I wrote down a lot of notes and want to talk about the Jets is because this is one of the teams I got wrong. And so I want to do this self-report as to talk about not only verbalize the process that I went through when I decided to bet season win unders with the Jets, but how it transpired. What did I miss? What kind of season did the Jets have? So we're going to go through and we're going to take it just like all the other ones. And we're going to start at the end of 2021, which wasn't pretty for the New York Jets. They didn't know what they had with Zach Wilson at the end of his 5 or 6 game stint in terms of playing as a rookie behind a very, very porous offensive line. They had a brand new head coach, a defensive-minded coach in Robert Saleh, and his defense allowed 504 points in 2021. So there was a lot of ground to make up at the end of 2021. And the organization, they had a lot of holes, let's face it. There were so many problems. The sack ratio, 33 sacks for, 53 sacks against. That almost 70% pass D. If you don't defend the pass, you can't win in the NFL. And top it off, they allowed 4.5 per carry on the run. So this was a problem, and they had a lot of needs entering into the draft. So as I prepared for what I would do for the 2022 season with the New York Jets, the first thing I did is look at their needs in the draft and look at free agency and see, okay, what are they going to do now? And let's face it, when the draft was over, we know that they aced the draft. They absolutely aced this draft. They were my number one draft class. And remember, this came after years of having failed GM after failed GM after failed GM. They got 3 first-round picks. Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati, shutdown cornerback in college. It turned out to be a shutdown cornerback in the NFL. Instantly became their number one defensive back. They drafted one of the top-tier wide receivers in Wilson from Ohio State, also in the first round. Instantly upgraded their receiving core, which was starting to get good with Corey Davis on board and Elijah Moore, but Wilson was the guy who could ascend to number one. They drafted a running back, Breece Hall, who ran faster than I expected at the combine, made people miss more than I expected when I watched tape of him before the NFL draft. And he was my 1B to my 1A, Kenneth Walker. Both Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall really stood out as good running backs, and so he instantly elevated the running back room. Then they also added Jermaine Johnson, a pass rusher out of Florida State with some hidden potential. He had 1 year's worth of good tape. He fit right into a Jet unit that needed that area. So instantly, we have 4 people who could start on the team, 2 on offense, 2 on defense right away. The problem I still had with the Jets going into the season and before the season started was offensive line. This offensive line was bottom 3 in the NFL, in my opinion. They had allowed, like I said, 53 sacks. They had a left tackle who was disillusioned with the team. He almost walked away. Then he would get hurt in the preseason. All sorts of problems before the season started. And he was their best offensive lineman, and the rest was kind of makeshift. Again, we didn't know what we had at quarterback with Zach Wilson. Coming from BYU, he had to win that starting job out of as a senior in college. Performed well against mediocre competition because of COVID, and entered the NFL with a chip on his shoulder for whatever reason, a gunslinger who wasn't getting it right, and teammates tended to like the backup quarterback a little bit better than the starter. So we had a lot of questions going in to the season. Here were my seasonal keys. Once again, I use my 32 team sheets, the team sheet on the New York Jets, filled with information. And these are the questions that I had to answer before either placing a seasonal bet on or against the New York Jets, or how would I game plan for the season? Would I go against them during the season? Would I take them in certain spots, look ahead spots for other teams? How would I, what was going to be my game plan going in? Because July and August for me, absolutely when I do the most work so that I'm ready for the NFL season and I don't have to react on a week-to-week basis. So the first key is that minus 13 turnover ratio. Typically, when you see outlier turnover ratios, they do tend to get better the next year. But in this case, with the New York Jets, which is such a young defense, long way to go defensively, and also an offense where you had a quarterback who was a bit of a gunslinger and a shaky offensive line, I didn't think we'd see much progress with the turnover ratio. Therefore, it wasn't a positive in my eye. It wasn't a negative, but I had a feeling that they would still have a negative turnover ratio, which, as it turns out, they did. Not quite to minus 13, but it got up there. My second key was obviously how fast could this dynamic class of rookies contribute. I thought Gardner would do well, but I didn't know he would do as well as he did. I thought Wilson would come right into it as a wide receiver, and he was needed because a couple of the other wide receivers missed some time. Elijah Moore missed some time. Corey Davis missed a couple of games. The tight end play was shaky. They needed him to deliver, and he did deliver right away. So the class delivered above expectations, but I didn't have any reservations about the class. It was my number one rated class, but I didn't know it would come together so soon. You'll see in one of my later keys why I thought it wouldn't come together early on. Breece Hall was probably going to win Rookie of the Year the way he was contributing. I have his numbers. He had roughly 400 yards in the first 6 games, and he was really coming on, getting more playing time, and then he got hurt and he was out for the year. The Jets missed him, but he was just one of many players who contributed greatly as a rookie this particular season. That 504 yards allowed bugged me. We knew Saleh was a defensive-minded coach. Maybe Gardner would help. Maybe Johnson would help the pass rush. But how fast would they go from allowing 30 points a game to allowing a more conservative, let's say 24, 25 points a game? And would the offense compensate for what needed to be more work in order to get to, let's say, a 50-50 record? Obviously, I thought it would be better. Second-year coach, first-time coaching, second-year quarterback, a lot of these rookies. There was bound to be some improvement, but I just didn't know how much. How much could I trust them? And finally, and this is important to me, when would that first win come? Let's take a look at that early schedule that they had. Games 1 to 4, kind of a weird schedule. Games 1 to 4 were against every single team from the AFC North. We're talking Baltimore, then Cleveland, then Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh. They had to go to Pittsburgh. That was going to be a tough game. They had to play Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. They had to face Baltimore, who's typically a very, very strong starting team. And they beat the Jets in that particular game 24-9. I projected at most a 1-3 start. Now let's look at their next 5 games that they had to play. An ascending Miami team, which we knew had a good defense and was going to improve on offense because they added Tyreek Hill. Tua looked good and sharp, ready to go at the beginning of the season. They had an offensive-minded staff. Then they had to play at Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, at Denver, and at the time we thought an improved Denver offense with Russell Wilson, but certainly a defense that would do some things against this Jet offense and Zach Wilson. That was not going to be a problem. Then they had to face New England, a team that had lost to numerous times. They have just a horrible record against New England. And finally, in game 9, they hosted Buffalo, who is the preseason favorite to win the division and the AFC. At most, I had them at 2-7 at this particular point, and I could see 1-8. Even with the rookies and even with the draft, this was the mindset that I had given the brutal schedule to start, the fact that I thought the offensive line and the quarterback weren't quite ready, and that the defense would improve, but not by leaps and bounds right away. So my season win decision was simple. I was going under, and we were getting really close to seeing a number of 6.5, which is what I wanted. Unfortunately, their left tackle went down with injury about 3-4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks before the season started. And I didn't think we would see a 6.5 after that. So I went under 6 wins at plus 115. You could see it was trending to 6.5, but I couldn't find one where I was situated. But plus 115 is nice, and 6 is still a push. And then after Zach Wilson went down and he was lost for the first 3 games, the odds makers changed the line to 5.5, knowing that Joe Flacco was going to be the starting quarterback. Joe Flacco was wonderful 10 years ago, but he's more of a placeholder now. Might cut down on interceptions. I thought that might be a good thing for the Jets. But with that offensive line and with the fact that the schedule was going to be hard, I didn't see that they would improve with Joe Flacco. And it was just another case where the value was going to be gone. So what happened during the season? The season played out when they erased in the last 2 minutes a 13-point deficit against Cleveland week 2 to win that game. Go back and look at the recap of that game. The Jets had a less than 1% chance to win the game, and Cleveland did some inexplicable things at the end of that particular game. The Jets escaped 31-30. They get their first win in the second week of the season, and I thought that was huge for them because I didn't know when that first win was going to come. And then in week 4, they come back from a double-digit deficit against Pittsburgh. At Pittsburgh, when Pittsburgh suddenly decides they want to pass in the fourth quarter, risking things with a young quarterback, with an offense that I know they were trying to win the game at that point, ice the game, but the clock management was bad in the fourth quarter. The Jets escaped with a win, and all of a sudden they were 2-2. And then the next week, with some injuries with Miami, they blow out Miami to go 3-2. And all of a sudden, you could see the writing on the wall. The rookies were performing above expectations, even my high expectations. The team had improved defensively. The coaching staff had made some adjustments between 2021 and 2022. And more than that, winning breeds confidence, and they were getting the confidence. And all of a sudden, they were on a mini winning streak, and they got to their 7th win in plenty of time to beat me fair and square. Now, it's curious that after that, they didn't win another game, and they finished 7-10. So you think, you look at their record, 7-10. Oh, they didn't beat me by much. I had under 6 wins. They only got 7. But the reality is I misjudged how fast the rookies would contribute. And I think I misjudged a little bit how fast the defense would improve off those horrible 2021 numbers. However, there was a little luck involved, as I said, early in the season when they had those 2 lucky wins. And basically, the offense did not deliver this year. They still had some problems. Zach Wilson may or may not be the future of this franchise. They kind of shied away from him. They got a spark when Mike White came in. However, the offense, I'm looking at the numbers. So as we prepare, for example, where are we now? In terms of the Jets, I want to quote some numbers to you. Last 4 games of the regular season, they lose to not a great defensive team by any means, Detroit, 20-17. They lose hosting Jacksonville, 19-3. Not a great defensive team, Seattle, they lose 13-6. And at Miami at the end of the season, they lose 11-6. So basically, this team scored 9, 15, and they had only 12 points against Buffalo. They averaged fewer than 10 points per game in their last 5 games of the season. So we know there's still work to do for the Jets, and they're still in this tough division. New England is plateauing, in terms of their floor. I think New England is still a viable candidate to reach 8, 9, 10 wins. We'll talk about them a little bit later this week. And Miami, they had a pretty good year this year in transition from a defensive-minded coach to an offensive-minded coach, and Buffalo's not going anywhere. So the Jets are still saddled with 6 games in a very tough division. And in my opinion, they still have work to do, and I'm still leaning toward the under as we speak on February 1st. We don't know what that number will be. The AFC will again have 9 home games instead of 8. So I'm thinking the Jets number may grade out at 7, 7.5, but there's a lot of time to figure that out. We don't know about free agency. We don't know about their quarterback decisions, and we don't know about what they're going to do in the draft. But they need offensive linemen in the worst way. Rookie quarterback or young quarterback's best friend is absolutely protecting your quarterback. You must have a strong offensive line, and you must have a tall, capable pass-catching target at tight end, which I think the Jets are not perfect in that area as well. They improved in that area, but they don't have a top 15 tight end on their roster right now. It wouldn't hurt to have a 2 tight end system. They're set up running back. They're set up wide receiver. That they still have a lot of work to do offensively. And they hired a new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, who has an offensive background. Obviously, the job he did as head coach at Denver was not good at all. And a lot of people are going to pan this pick of Hackett. But let's see how it plays out. Let's see how he grooms the next quarterback. I'm kind of playing neutral on the quarterback offensive coordinator situation right now. I obviously need to see, the first thing is that offensive line has to improve, or otherwise no quarterback's going to have a chance in that system. So bottom line, I thought the Jets overachieved in 2022. I love the rookie class. If they can put together another good rookie class, then this organization has a chance to make the playoffs next year. Again, they're going to have a tough schedule, so let's not automatically think that they're a shoo-in to move from 7-win season to a 9 or 10-win season, whatever it takes to make the playoffs. They will have one advantage. They, again, by virtue of the schedule, will have a 4th-place schedule. So they'll have a lot of teams that other teams in their division will not play. Maybe that gets a 3rd team perhaps in the playoffs in the AFC East in 2023. So that's my analysis of the Jets. I missed on that one, but that's okay. I feel comfortable with how I've approached the season. It just didn't go my way. I will be back. That's it for today. This is the 3rd show for today, but tomorrow, it's not me just running solo. Tomorrow, we're going to preview the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to do it with a special guest. You know him from Twitter. Of course, we'll reintroduce you to him. Sharp Clark. He does a lot of great work on the NFL. That's his one and only sport, as I understand it. So we're going to get 2 perspectives on the Jacksonville Jaguars when we next meet up. So be sure to catch that show. And we'll see you again tomorrow and down the road as the NFL 2022 exit reports continue. Thanks for watching.